Recording. Awesome, amazing, fantastic. Thank you for watching, everybody. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. You know who it is, I would hope by now. We're doing another Reviewing Your Music segment where we hop on Twitch. We take your songs, your submissions, viewer submissions. We review them, react to them live, give thoughts, constructive criticism. Of course, on YouTube, we link down below to all the artists whose stuff we hear and we talk about, so you can check it out for yourself. And we are going to begin the festivities this evening with this track from Mr. JCass. Show Me How to Love is the, is the title of it. Very cute title. Again, Twitch username is JCass. Artist name JCass. Pronouns he, him. Song title Show Me How to Love. Genre is house. So let's give it a spin, give it a listen, see what it's got to offer. Ba-bam. Okay, nice. Shout out to JCass for the submission. Show Me How to Love. A lot of positive things to say about that track. The beat was tight. The 80s soft synth funk chords and leads that were a little ethereal were a nice touch. I think a good pair for these, house style kicks and everything. And I love how you didn't take a super obvious approach with the hi-hats in the first half, and rather than hitting us with, a very simple or something like that, you kind of had almost like a stuttering, call and response going on between the kicks and the hi-hats, which, I've heard on many a track before. I don't know the exact terminology for what kind of, rhythmic trick you're pulling off there. I mean, I've heard groups like Disclosure do it. I mean, there's a lot that I could name if I had more brain capacity. I loved, the way you were pulling it off there. The mix was great. Synth bass was a nice touch. The vocal chops were on point too. And there was that beat switch in the back half that so many people in chat seemed to mess with, that went in more of a synthy, kind of wavy, watery, I would say a little hypnotic, somewhat of a trap direction, especially as you were kind of hitting us with those hi-hats with the... I would say with the hi-hats in the future, arpeggiate them a little bit. And there's different ways that you could go about that. You can adjust the pitch on each one slightly. You could adjust the full, why can't I talk? The velocity on each one slightly, just so it doesn't feel like this straight line of, almost like a white noise shot if you, had, if you played them fast enough. Maybe just arpeggiate the hi-hats a little bit. Just kind of vary up the sound, be it either in very subtle shifts in pitch or velocity, just to kind of switch that up a little bit so it doesn't feel like kind of one static, so it has a bit more flow to it. Think about it in terms of if you had to play that on an actual hi-hat physically, and with what hand and in what moments would you be hitting harder? What beat would you be, whether it be on the 4 or the, the 1 or the whatever, would you be emphasizing? Think about which one you'd be emphasizing, which one you'd sort of fall into the background a little bit. So, just consider that. Just think about that. But outside of that, I think my other biggest piece of advice here is again, the mix, the production is great. It's solid. It's well put together. It's groovy. I would say beyond here, do more sound play. do more exploration of like textures, timbres, either on the perk side or the synth side. I'm not saying like, you know, throw this whole house thing to the fucking side and like, you know, just do some experimental shit. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like, you know, invest in some crazier VSTs, or get a little bit more ambitious with what you're doing in your VSTs in terms of like, you know, your synth patches. Invest in some analog synthesizers. I don't know what kind of equipment you have at home, but a lot of what we heard here sounded fairly in the box, you know, in terms of like, you know, the DAW. You know, just like try to do your best. And I'm not saying you need to blow like $5,000 on synths. I'm not saying that. There are a lot of very, you know, affordable mid-grade synthesizers that you can get great sounds out of. And there are a lot of apps and VSTs that model classic analog synthesizers almost perfectly. But yeah, you know, I would encourage diving into that a little bit further and just like, you know, trying to like, you know, look at like working in that stuff as just like digging up gold. You know, it's like, yeah, it's a process, and doing it, you may not know what direction you're going in and what you're doing and what is going to generate what sound and where exactly you want to go. But that's kind of the magic of it. You know what I mean? Like, you just want to go in there and twiddle knobs and fuck around until you just like hit upon a sound that's like, whoa, it's a mind-blowing fucking sound. I need to use that sound. I just created this. I just birthed this sound here. I need to incorporate it in some way. So yeah, you know, that's what I would encourage from here, because, you know, everything else in terms of the structure, the groove, the composition is solid as fuck. And, you know, you did a really good job of balancing, again, like all these different elements, from the rhythms to the synthesizer layers, you know, to those hi-hats and the vocal chops. Oh, one more thing, the solo passage. I would encourage you to look a little bit more into like jazz phrasing and stuff. Like, there are some, you know, notes that I think you could have led into with a semitone or something, just to kind of like break up the melody a little bit so it doesn't feel so stiff. You know, when you're trying to pull through with a solo like that, you need to think about how someone would sing it, you know? Like, maybe when you're thinking of a solo passage for a song, just like in your own head, think of what would be a good melody line and just like sing it. Just sing it out loud or hum it to yourself. And then from there, once you have in your head, either recorded onto a microphone or something, you know, down the clear idea of like, this would be a good solo to me, this is a good melody line for a solo, then bring that on to the synthesizer, then bring that on to whatever it is you want to play. And I think you're going to find that your solos are going to feel a bit more human and not so much like, yeah, this, I mean, I know the scale and I'm just going to, you know, throw in some notes here from the scale. It felt a little stiff. And I think, again, if you took more of like the, let me sing it out, or let me look more into jazz phrasing kind of approach, you'll get some more magic going melodically during those passages. But those are my thoughts. That's the extent to my thoughts. And this track is private too, from Mr. J-Cass, who does seem to have a bit more of a SoundCloud following. J-Cass has more SoundCloud clout. That's for damn sure, with 4,000 followers over here. But shout out to you. Thank you very much for coming through and submitting and giving us a good groovy track to listen to. This artist's name is so good. Richie Dagger's Crime. It's very dramatic. Very dramatic. All right, here we have our next submission. Twitch username is Edge City. Artist name, Richie Dagger's Crime. Pronouns are he, him. Song title is Fall in Light. Karina also seems to be featured on the track. And the genre is pop. Let's give it a spin, see what it's got to offer. Ba-bam.
You can't deny.
Okay. Thank you very much for submitting. There we had Richie, Dagger's Crime, Fallen Light, with Karina on the track as well. Thoughts on that? I really liked the instrumental palette on that one a lot. If I am correct, you know, that sounded like some classical guitars, nylon strings. I love the tone of those typically, and hearing them kind of layered over each other in that way was quite nice. Even if they're kind of falling on each other a little bit, I kind of like that. There's something to that that's just really captivating. Maybe it's from listening to too many Microphones records, but the guitar tone was great. The hand drums were quite nice. Those piano touches were beautiful as well. Some of the vocal layering was pretty too. There was something about it, even though it didn't strictly feel to me like some, you know, random indie folk track. There was something to it that felt like early Fleet Foxes to me, you know. But again, you know, didn't feel very specifically, very distinctly kind of boxed into that indie folk lane. You know, I will say, like, the vocals hit for me during some points and they didn't. I had a difficult time kind of putting a finger on exactly why, though. Maybe the vibrato was a little aggressive at points, but you know, for sure what was, you know, really kind of a bigger point for the song for me as far as an issue is I think there could have been like a greater instrumental contrast or change as far as the chorus goes to get some more contrast going across the progression of the track, and the ending finished off in somewhat of an awkward state. I felt like the vocals going in a bit, I guess a darker series of harmonies was an interesting tension building point, and I was hoping past that we would, you know, hit a resolution or a growth point or a bridge or some kind of change that would, you know, sort of like see that tension be released or something, but it just kind of ended up being the finish. I thought, at least in my opinion, it was a bit of an odd ending, you know. I don't know if you have plans for this to kind of transition into another cut in sort of like a larger record, a larger piece or something like that. But there were definitely like a few issues here and there with the structuring of the song that I think could have been better. You know, regardless of what I can't exactly nail down about the vocals off the bat. But yeah, you know, again, as far as like, you know, production, performance, instrumental palette and everything, it was really dynamic. It was organic. It was beautiful. It was quite captivating as well. And, you know, sounded pretty without being too dolled up or anything like that. So, yeah, you know, good listen. Thank you for submitting. I have to say, this is quite the name. This is quite the artist name. I think Richie Dagger's Crime. Richie Dagger's Crime. I can't. I see that name. I'm stopped in my tracks. I want to know what that is. It's a good ass name. It's a good name. You got to keep throwing out tracks and keep just pitching that name to people. I think Richie Dagger's Crime is just a 10 out of 10 name. It's a 10. This next one, which McFarlane told me, he swore to me on his mom, swore to me on his mother, that he picked this at random. All right, let me read the background info here. We have Obumo. Pronouns are he, him. Song title Cycles. Seems to feature Paul Singh. And the genre is hip-hop and rap. Let's give it a listen and see what it's got.
Get ready, get ready, get ready.
Well, there you go. Thank you for submitting. That was a nice, chill, laid-back, groovy little instrumental hip-hop experience. I thought that you pretty much nailed the looseness of that wonky rhythm. Like, that is such a craft that is very difficult to nail down, There were aspects of it that felt, you know, just like a little bit out of, you know, tempo in a good way, where it felt organic. And again, it felt like loose, it felt natural. But then there were parts that felt a little tighter, you know, which only added to the beat. You have tight parts, you have loose parts. I would say specifically those kind of pops and pings that you had going and like little bits. I can't explain them with any other terminology. I would say they felt maybe a little bit like a little bit too loud in comparison with everything else. Like after a while, they felt a little grating. I think you could take the edge off of those a little bit, either pulling the highs down just a touch with the filter, or just maybe bringing the volume down a little bit. You know, you have to keep in mind that like there are so few. Well, it's in terms of like those spots in the beat where they're hitting, they're not competing with too much else treble wise. So it's like you could turn them down a little bit and they'll still come through very crisp and very loud and be very easy to hear. So there's that. I loved the synthesizer passages and layers. I thought they were really good. They sounded as good and as luxurious and as slippery and sleek as something out of like a Dame Funk record, which I thought was quite nice. The grooves were really great across the progression. I loved how, I'll say, like, enveloping it all felt. I will say in the last leg, I love the break you eventually made to, like, those harpsichord-type chords. And, you know, some of the, like, very subtle melody work that you were accompanying with that. It seemed like for a second you were kind of trying to break into that transition, but there was almost like an awkward phase where I was kind of hearing some more synths seep in, and I was like, I don't know if that sounds great. But eventually, again, we did make that break, and when we did fully make that transition, it sounded good. I would say just try to clean up that transition a little bit, or come up with a way either to make that transition, if you're going to do it gradually, sound a bit more together. You know, maybe not like we're hearing two parts at odds with each other for a few seconds, or find a way to creatively make that hard immediate change, which could also be very gratifying as well. You know, it doesn't need to be a slow shift. I mean, obviously that might change the kind of chill mood of the track overall, but if you're looking to maintain that chill mood, and you're going to do that slow transition, I would say try to find a way to make it sound more harmonious as you're making that change occur. But outside of that, I thought it was a groovy little cut. It was a groovy little instrumental cut. For anybody watching on YouTube, this track and the others we spoke about in this segment will be linked down below, so you can check it out for yourself. This has been another taste of reviewing your music with yours truly, Anthony Fantano. You're the best. Love you. Reviewing your music forever.